Live from the pitch pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. On this episode of Pitch Live,
I'd rather be right and second than first and wrong every single time. We need to make sure that we have the facts. We need to make sure that our reporting is buttoned up. And that gives people a little bit of an opportunity to take that one breath or two to make sure that you have everything in a row before we put something on the air, because you can't take it back once it's on television.
Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and an Easy Box. I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur who's passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know that's possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm here today and joined by Ted Winner, who is true to his name, he is a winner. He's a Peabody, DuPont, and Emmy Award-winning producer. He currently serves as the senior manager in charge of live morning programming at New York One Spectrum News in New York City, where he manages more than 30 hours of live broadcasts each week, including the station's flagship show, Mornings on One. And Ted, there's so much more I have to share with your bio, but
I'm exhausted just hearing that.
I know. We're going to pause for a second because, TV people always do this to us. So I'm going to do it to you. Sure. I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Okay.
And
great.
I want to just do a quick little fire round with you just to see if people can kind of guess who you are without me like telling them everything right off the bat. Okay. So are you game for that?
Anything, Aim. You know that.
All right. So I'm going to just give you two options. All you have to do is just pick one, whatever comes to your head, into your mind first. All right, here we go. Fox News or CNN?
CNN.
Yeah, there was a pause there. Okay, you had to think about it. All right.
Not really.
Athletes or politicians?
Athletes.
Okay. Pickleball or tennis?
Tennis.
Okay.
Every single time. Every single time.
We'll have to talk about that later.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
Okay.
Always.
And Boston or New York Marathon?
New York.
Okay. Have you done the Boston Marathon?
I have not. Only the New York.
So you're just being biased to New York all the way around.
I'm a New Yorker all the way around. Always. No way to slice it other than up and down the 5 boroughs, for sure.
All right. I first met Ted during his time at CNN when I was publicizing Fabian Cousteau's Mission 31 expedition. And I still remember seeing a 404 Atlanta area code pop up on my phone when I was driving down to South Florida. We were doing some mission prep. And I knew I had to answer. I was thinking, oh my gosh, it could be CNN. And it was. Lucky me, it was Ted. And that's how we met. I booked Fabian on his morning show while I was speeding down the highway, and I was trying to remember like every single detail he was telling me about arrival times and everything. I remember after I got off the phone with you, I had to pull into a gas station because I was like, I better write all this down. I'm going to forget it.
I didn't know that.
I know. But that's why you PR people, you always answer your phone. You never like not answer. But that phone call really kicked off a long-standing professional connection that we've had and that I valued ever since. Ted's career in journalism spans more than 25 years with some of the most iconic media organizations in the industry, including CNN, ABC News, The Weather Channel, ESPN, and NFL Network, where he has been instrumental in developing and launching new programming like Cold Pizza, Good Morning Football. His work has taken him around the world, from traveling through Africa with Bono to shine a light on third world debt, to reporting from refugee camps in Albania during the Bosnian War, and spending the day with Muhammad Ali at his home and training center in South Bend, Indiana. Ted has also been on the front lines of some of the biggest global breaking news stories, including September 11th and the tragic death of Princess Diana. Welcome, Ted.
Hi, Amy. That's a lot.
Fun to like flip the script on you. Is it a little awkward that you have to answer all the questions now?
it was funny when I was putting I mean, listen, we're in it every single day, 24/7. So when you have that moment to take a pause and sort of take stock of your career, and I do it occasionally, but it's a lot. It really is.
Yes, it is a lot, and, we say something on this show all the time. I always tell my team they have to MSH, which is when we're, in company, we say make success happen," but it's really make shit happen, and I know that you do that every single day.
We say it a little differently. We say making chicken salad out of you know what.
Well
That's our phrase.
well, I wanna just start with your career, just so our audience can get to know you and your background a little bit better. I wanna know what led you to broadcast journalism, after college, because I noticed that your degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison was, actually in political science. How did that
Yes.
influence your career path?
Well, it's funny. I was a political science major, and what I really did, I wanted to go work on Capitol Hill. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a press secretary. I just had this vision of helping change policy, influence policy, be a part of policy making, all of that. And quite frankly, there was an opportunity at the time, and it just fell to the wayside because the person that I was going to be interning with there was an issue with his background, and it just didn't work out. I'll just leave it at that. But there was an issue that sort of made the decision for me. I was ready to go to Washington, and then something didn't work out. Not on my part, on from Washington, and which happens sometimes with there's issues or scandals or what have you. Fill in the
All the
blank,
time,
but
every
all the
day,
time.
on
But
my phone.
it just
I
exactly.
didn't
But
have to turn it off.
it just didn't work out. But I've always wanted to be in media. It was something that I always had sort of a, fire in my belly to be involved in. And then another opportunity presented itself for me to do um, like a winter internship at CBS News, and just to kind of like bridge between winter break and the next semester. And I had just an opportunity, and I went in and I spoke a little French and I spoke a little Italian, not like fluent by any stretch of the imagination, but they plopped me on the foreign desk at CBS News for a 3-week stint. And that's when the first Gulf War broke out in 1991. And I got the bug. Like Dan Rather was maybe 50 feet that way from me, and I was hooked. And that sort of like sparked my journey.
Mhm.
But I just knew I wanted to be in journalism and broadcast journalism, and I got the breaking news bug right away, and that's kind of what set it all in motion.
That's so interesting because I mean, similar, the press secretary idea, and
Yeah,
journalism in that it's a very exhilarating career, high stress, but such different paths. Do you ever look
very
back
different.
now and are you grateful or regretful that you didn't get to do the
Well,
White House job?
it's funny because now you fast forward 25 years, and I work with comms people and people in Washington all the time, whether it's in Washington or here in the city, with communications people and press people all the time. And for me personally, I I think I made the right decision. Just for me personally, for personal satisfaction, I get a lot of it every day. I am involved in the news as it happens. I'm involved in it, in history. There have been a lot of stories and assignments that I've had throughout my career where I'm not on the sidelines, where I'm actively involved in seeing something unfold right before my eyes, and that you can't make up stuff like that. You're very appreciative of what you're involved in. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It affects you.
Looking back now, is there any particular story that really sticks out to you as like a favorite assignment or something that you were really um, proud about that you were able to participate in?
I mean, there are a lot, certainly, but one of the things that I was the story that you mentioned, the assignment you mentioned in Albania, and it was a war that was going on not that far away, and we were in these refugee camps, and there's certain images that are just like Polaroids to you, and they're just etched in your memory, and I'll never forget sort of walking through there and seeing the kids, and there's really no words to sort of describe sort of what you're seeing and sort of the conditions that they're living under. Um, it was just heart wrenching, And then when I was in Africa, you mentioned that too. We went to these camps, and you see the kids, and um, there was a tennis ball in the mud, and there's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier, there's, you know, lots of obstacles. And I remember picking up a tennis ball and having to catch with a kid. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're worlds apart in so many ways, but there was something that was a little universal in that moment, in that exchange, and that's something. And then we snapped photos together. I framed the photo. It's in my home. It's just something that you just remember. So those are a couple of things, but there's so many.
So let's fast forward a little bit to today.
Sure.
You have a big role. Can you tell
Yeah.
us what your tip? I don't. Nobody has a typical day. I'm certainly not in news, but what does a
Yeah.
day look like? I mean, what time are you waking up? Like, what time do you go to bed? So from start to finish, like, what does your
Sure.
day look like?
Sure. So, let's just back up for 1 second. So yeah, so you mentioned I manage live morning programming at New York One, and the signature show that I manage for the most part is Mornings on One. It's on from 6 until noon. So I have a 6 hour day part that I manage. But as you may know, and some of your audience may know, that morning television is not just that block of time that you have to manage. That's when you're on the air. There are hours before that and after that that lead up to that period of time that you have to prepare for. So I have a team. We stagger their shifts. I have people that are there in the late afternoon and the evening while I'm taking a little nap, and I'll explain that in a second. That are sort of you got to sleep.
Sounds
That
like a Seinfeld episode.
exactly, or another episode we'll talk about that. So where they're preparing and developing content, they're monitoring what's happening throughout the day and evening to sort of pivot and adjust if need be. I have marching orders that I sort of disseminate to everybody based on what I think is the right stories to cover. But things change. The news business changes like that. Um, so it's really it really is a 24/7 operation for me. But to answer your question, my alarm goes off at 2:50 a.m. every single day. And I get to the office probably about 3:45 a.m. every single day. We have a staff meeting shortly thereafter to go over the rundown. A night note goes out from me before I head off to slumber for a few hours. That sort of like lays the groundwork of who's doing what and where they're going to be. Obviously, the news gods may have something else in mind when I get up in the morning, and my team in the evening, they are empowered to make those changes if necessary. And then we talk about it in the morning, like, is that the right call? Should we pivot them to something else? Whatever, right? Just it's always based on resources and manpower and just sort of staffing and what have you. And we just try to make the pieces fit, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'm at the office by like 3:30, 3:45. We have a rundown meeting with the staff shortly thereafter. Um, and then we're on the air at 6. We'll pre-tape some things if necessary, which basically means we'll record a few things
Mhm.
in advance just to kind of help with the production. So that way I want to have my anchor standing somewhere, or there's a really cool graphic that I want to make sure that it looks the right way with cameras and so forth. We'll do that in before 6 o'clock, if need be, and sometimes we'll just do it live, which is fine too. But and then we're off and running, and we're on the air, for many hours to come. And then there'll be breaking news sometimes that happen, in the morning, or there'll be some horrible thing, but there'll also be an event that we need to cover, and we need to move resources to it. Or, um, there was a story a couple weeks ago or a week ago where the mayor's his corruption case was just dropped, and that happened at like in the early morning hour, not early morning, but like around 9 o'clock, and we stayed on the air for a little while. Or Mayor Adams announced, at 6:30 in the morning, not that long ago, um, where he's going to now run as an independent as opposed to running in the primary. Wow, that's like big news. So um, you just have to be ready. You know what I mean?
What do you have a cutoff time where, like, I absolutely have to go to bed at this time? You tell everybody in your house, do not bug me after what time?
Yeah, there is that. It
Okay.
doesn't always go like that.
Okay.
But I try to go to bed by 9:30 and get a
Okay.
good 5. But I sleep in shifts. Like I will go and sleep for giving you my inner bedroom secrets here, Amy. Sorry, but I'll go to, but I'll go to bed around like 9:30, and I'll wake up, like as I said, around 2:50. But when I come home, I'm usually home in the early afternoons, and I'll work out or I'll have a little lunch, and then usually or between like 2 and 4, I'm nodding off for a little bit.
You get a power nap in there.
Right. Something like that.
Because
But listen,
parenting is another full-time job.
that is. My kids are much older now, which is great. But yes, it's sleep is definitely a commodity. And if I take a vacation or take a mental health day or something like that, you can rest assured my head is on the pillow for a little
That is
while
why
to recover.
I love pitching sleep stories to TV people because they always get it. Like, I always feel like I get a booking with, like, a sleep story because everybody wants to know how to get more sleep
Yes,
or
any
rest.
sort of health related story when it comes to sleep or coffee or something like that will always get my attention.
Yeah.
As long as it's not from the Coffee Association of America, then we know
Right.
where the pitch is coming, and there's instant conflict of interest. But
Yes.
if there's medical, information behind it, maybe I would get behind that.
All right, so we're going to get into pitching a little bit because I think a lot of
Sure.
people don't realize that journalists actually do need to know how to pitch, and there's several aspects of their job that
Yeah.
require pitching. I mean, what aspects of a journalist job require pitching from your perspective and from what you know?
Well, you have to have. There are certain things that are in my world must-haves when let's say if I'm on the receiving end. Let's start there. For me on the receiving end of a pitch, there needs to be content associated with that pitch, and what I mean by that is there video of some kind of an event? Let's say from a behind the scenes aspect. Is there? I'm making this up, Amy, but you understand where I'm coming from. Like, some sort of time lapse or video. There needs to be some content that is attached to a pitch, if possible. If it's just a paragraph, that could be fine, because maybe the pitch is come to this event at 3 o'clock in Brooklyn. I'm just making this up, where so and so is going to be there, and that's an event oriented pitch. Then there'll be pitches where we covered this event last night. Here's some video of the opening of Goodnight, whatever, the new George Clooney show on Broadway, where there's pictures and there's a red carpet, whatever, right? Things like that. So it just all depends. But typically, if there's content attached to a pitch, that will instantly get my attention.
So you get pitches from outside sources, or so from people like me, publicists, PR professionals, and anybody on the outside. But inside
Hmm.
your team, do you have
Sure.
reporters and staff pitching you about stories that they want to do? So, like, if you're a reporter, do you have to have some good pitching skills to kind of pitch it? And who are they pitching? Who are they pitching
Yeah,
in the newsroom?
yeah. I mean, let's just start with my staff, for example. We have weekly staff meetings that kind of give people empower them to pitch to the show and to me and to the anchors, and it's very collaborative. The whole station is extremely collaborative. So there are show specific pitches, and then reporters, for example, could pitch their managers like, "Hey, I saw this out in Bay Ridge. I know this is a great opportunity for a small business who, that's just getting going. But the catch is that they've really succeeded since COVID. I'm just making something up. That could be a great opportunity for a reporter piece to go pitch something and then go out in the field, put the piece together. Then that story would air on multiple platforms at our station, for example. And then on my end, as I said, we have weekly staff meeting pitches. We have, but if there's something that's more urgent, they don't have to wait a week for the staff meeting to pitch me something. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, it really is an opportunity across all ways and means in order to in order to, sell or pitch your idea. So it kind of runs the gamut.
And then I
I hope
know,
that answers your
yeah,
question.
no, I think that's great. And then I know that when journalists, when they are doing a story, you got to have some kind of pitching skills to maybe get sources, especially with some stories that
Yeah.
are, could out a company or out an individual. You
Hmm.
got to persuade people to come on the news and do an interview, maybe.
Yeah.
So, where do they learn those skills? Is that something that they're learning in journalism school, or is that something that they're learning from mentors on the team on how to get sources? How do you teach that?
Yeah, no, listen, it's a really good question. Sources come from a variety of ways. Sources for me come from relationships and building those relationships. Before we started this, I got a tip from somebody, off the record now. Here's the pitch. We can talk more about it tomorrow, but they put a bug in my ear that there's something
Mm.
that they want to talk to me about. It really does come down to relationships. For reporters, for example, at least at New York One, a lot of our reporters have certain beats that they cover, whether it's transit or education or criminal justice, or the political unit. We cover such a wide range of um, topics and issues where at my station, and those reporters ultimately, from hitting the field and those relationships, they establish sources. It's just kind of how it works. And for me, and my show and my network, it's my relationships that I've had over the years. I still talk to people where you and I first got started when I was at CNN, and people are calling me that they have something. And we always look for stories that come through a New York lens or New York City lens, because that's where we are and that's the market that we cover. So if there's anything, for example, that could come through that filter, I'm interested, and that's something that people should always think about when they're pitching me, is that they need to always kind of go through that lens, because like I'm not,
I
respectfully, I'm
mean,
not
you
going to
are
do
New
something
York
in
One News. It's right in the
Right. I'm not going
title.
to do something from South Carolina, but like the economy and the tariffs, for example, that is part of the headlines right
Hmm.
now. That is something that affects so many people, affects the whole
Hmm.
country and the globe right now. So why not try to pitch me something that how that's going to affect the city, and then we would talk.
And you were talking about sources. It reminded me of another time that you called me out of the blue. I think I was at like somebody's baby shower or something, and I was like,
We've
"Uh
known
oh,
each other a
404.
long time.
I'm gonna step out of this baby shower," and sure enough, it was you, and you were like, I could just tell you were like at your wits end, because a journalist is at their wits end when they're calling a PR person like at the last minute. And they're like, anybody that's an expert on buffalo or bison. Do you remember that story? Do you remember doing a story?
You were telling me that in preparation of this, and you and I have a story and friendship and career together. It didn't ring a bell. Please tell me.
Yeah, so I found you somebody, though. I mean, it wasn't a client of ours, but my golden rule in PR is like, the journalist needs something. It doesn't matter if it's a client of yours or not. You find them that
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
And the funny thing is, he was a documentary filmmaker, and so he had done a lot of work on bison or buffalo or whatever it
that
was that you were covering. I don't know. Something terrible was happening. They were all dying or something. I don't know. But funny thing is that person that I gave you as an expert, which you used, was not a client of ours, but is now. So many years later,
oh,
like,
that's funny.
remembered me. Isn't that funny? So
That's really
but,
funny.
yeah, I so when you get up against the wall and you're trying
Yeah,
to, like, find a source for maybe,
yeah.
an odd story like that, I mean, where do you typically start? Like, how do you tell journalists, like, that work for you, like, where's a good place to start when you're trying to find experts, and especially if it's something odd? Do you
I
go
mean,
straight to the internet, or
well, no, I mean, that's good. I mean, feed your brain with as much information as you possibly can, with as many resources as you can. Like there's certain, four, five, six, seven, eight, and then some resources that I will always go to when I'm trying to read up on things, whether it's listen to podcasts or, newsletters or whatever. So the first thing I would do is just try to read up on whatever I possibly can on that. If it's a random thing or if it's something that's even something that's mainstream, because and you may have heard about this in your line of your side of the work, is that and you're very responsive. I'm going to give you your kudos, but there are other PR people that may not, and a lot of the times I might need something, or other shows might need something during off or odd hours. And the one thing I would say to PR people that are either representing a certain industry or people that are in the news is that they need to make sure that they have after hours contact information for journalists, because there'll be times when I need something at, 9 o'clock at night because something has happened and it's a Saturday at 9 o'clock in PM. I need to reach somebody,
Yeah.
so so just as much as I'm on 24/7,
Hmm.
I know the expectation might be a little different, but there should be somebody that I can get in touch with someone, even if it's an email or, someone needs to be able, there needs to be some sort of, way to reach you.
Yeah. I always tell everyone that comes to work for me, like, journalists do not have, like, working hours. Like, there's no
Right.
such thing. So if they contact you in the middle of the night, because I've had some people say, "Well, I was gonna respond to them in the morning, like, so it didn't look like I was responding to them at midnight." I'm like, "They don't care." I'm like, "You
Well,
respond to
it's
them, like,
over,
immediately."
or they've just moved on and they've cast a wide net for
Yes.
people because they don't have the time and they've reached out to 5 or 6 people. And if you have a client that you're trying to pitch or that would be perfect, you need to respond.
Yeah. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Do you I mean, obviously, you have people on your team pitching you stories, you have outside
Hmm.
people like me pitching you stories. Do you have any, like, specific pet peeves besides you mentioned the, like, not
Sure.
being local, but I feel like we always hear from journalists the same thing, like, "Watch our show and know what we do," but, like, is there any other
Oh
thing
yeah,
that really bothers you? Okay.
I got one. It's the biggest one of them all.
Okay.
Okay, is not being aware of your news surroundings. Okay, I cannot repeat that more than know your news surroundings. And what I mean by that is that I'm making this up, but let's just say that there's a lot of breaking news going on and everyone is crashing and reporting on this one particular story. And then I get a PR pitch about something that is completely off the beaten path because
A
they're
a
not
new
the
author with
time.
their book launch in the middle of the LA fires.
Fill in the blank, but you're absolutely right. And there's something that is just not, they're not aware of their pitching
They're
surroundings,
they're
if
they're
you will.
tone deaf to what's happening.
Tone deaf.
Yeah.
They are tone deaf to what is actually happening out there, and
So
that
you
is
bring
a
up a
deal breaker right away.
you bring up a good point because, really, for anybody that's pitching, you have the responsibility of, like, turning on the news and seeing what the heck's going on in your city, nationally, like, what's happening,
Right.
but I've noticed when I visit newsrooms that you all are also monitoring, what everybody else is covering. How much of that is part of your job, really, like, knowing what's happening around?
Sure. I mean, it's part of our, just part of our everyday to watch the competition, but we follow our own beat to to ourselves. Like we won't really react to what other people are doing. We have what our news philosophy and what we want to cover. And sometimes it zags when other people are, we zig when other people are zagging. It's just part of it.
Mhm.
We're very neighborhood oriented, for example. We like to cover what people are talking about, big bucket issue oriented stories, education, transportation, health, and medical. We're also the number one sports market in the country here in New York. We have two big baseball teams and football teams and so forth. So we cover things that are really impactful and that New Yorkers care about the most. Quality of life, housing. They're just big bucket issues and topics that we cover. And the competition might cover that, or they might be covering a crime related story that certainly is impactful to a smaller neighborhood, but we will cover that to a certain extent, but we also like to cover issues that are really impactful um, and that a majority of New Yorkers will be impacted by, if that makes sense.
And, a lot of people may have never experienced your world being in a
Mhm.
newsroom. Maybe they've only seen it, like, on Apple TV's The Morning Show or HBO's The
Yeah,
Newsroom, but can you
it's not that far off. It's not that far off.
is it pretty similar? Would you say it's that stressful and kinda cutthroat sometimes?
Listen, as you highlighted in my introduction, I've worked at a lot of different shops throughout my career. I mean, there's there's always competition to a certain extent, but where I work now, it really could not be more friendly and more collaborative. And we really try to set the next show up and the next team up, the next day part up for success. There really isn't any like infighting or anything like that. It really is pretty manageable. You know, there's I think they take a little artistic license or creative license when you see those shows to a certain
I,
extent.
I remember the first
But
time
listen, there's
I remember the first time I stepped in a TV room. It was shortly after I got done with college. It was a small market, but I
uh,
just remember the the anchor, she was so mad at the camera guy. She's like throwing pins at him and yelling at him during the commercial break.
oh
And then
really?
you go back on air
Uh-huh.
and she's like, everything was fine. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I chose PR. I would never be able to handle this atmosphere. But
Listen,
it is high stress because you are
totally.
producing a live program every day,
Yes.
and there's going to be mistakes people make or things that get in
Yep.
the way. How do
Yeah.
you manage a stressful type of environment, and how do you help your team, your news
Sure.
team, manage an environment like that? I mean, because obviously you're leading.
Yeah.
What examples do you set, or how do you help them manage this stressful type of job?
Yeah. Listen, the first thing I carried this throughout my career and to everybody is that I'd rather be right and second than first and wrong every single time. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is that we need to make sure that we have the facts. We need to make sure that our reporting is buttoned up. We need to make sure that we're not taking license and putting something on the air when we don't have all, as I said, when we don't have all the facts. So I'd rather be second and right than first and wrong every single time. And that gives people a little bit of an opportunity to take that one breath or two to make sure that you have everything in a row
Mhm.
before we put something on the air. And it's followed me throughout my career. Someone taught that to me. I have what's the word? I have just kind of given people that piece of advice throughout their careers as well, and to my team now, and it's worked. And it doesn't mean you're not acting fast or moving quickly to get something on the air that needs to get on the air. You're just being slightly more methodical before you put something on television because you can't take it back once it's on television.
Right.
So there's no way back once it's out there. So
Better
I'd rather,
better
as I
to be
said, I'd
right
rather
than first.
rather be right and second than first or wrong every single time.
That's really great advice, I think, in any in any room that you're in,
Everything.
especially, I think, in today's culture where it seems like you have to do everything so fast. I mean, I even catch myself personally, like, on responding to emails, like, if a client's upset and it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm ready to respond,
Hmm.
I'm like, "No, I'm gonna put this away because I know whatever
It's
I'm gonna
true.
say right now is not gonna land right in the morning."
And it goes to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago. Like, do I need to rush and get this pitch out to
Mhm.
whomever at 9:30 night so that way when he or she wakes up at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, they have it in their inbox? Or do I have a sense of what's going on,
Yeah.
and does it really pay to push it out that the night before? Can I send it to Ted or whoever in the morning when we wake up and I get a better sense of what the news gods have have in store
Yeah.
for everybody in that particular market.
That's
Do you
a
know what I mean?
really good point because, with these media databases, you can schedule pitches to go out anytime you want, just like you would
Right.
schedule a newsletter. So that is kind of a real dangerous thing to do. I mean, even with when clients have me send out press releases on the wire service, I could schedule those, but I always do them in real time because even though I have to take like 2 hours out of my day to like do it right then and there, but I'd hate for it to go out if some other breaking news happens or like you said, like you look tone deaf because something just
That's right.
happened.
That's right.
So,
So I'd rather just take the breath. It'll prove you to be much more useful than you think. Maybe not necessarily in that exact moment, but it will pay off.
now you mentioned that you had learned, this from another person,
Oh,
and now you're in a leadership position. Can you tell me, have there been mentors in your career or people that have managed you that they've managed a certain way that's really stuck with you that is really, developed how you lead? your team?
Sure. Um, Without naming names, obviously, but one thing is to be honest and to be nurturing at the same time and give feedback. Those are like three big ones that I have learned and that I used still to this day. Feedback is key because you can go through a show and maybe it was a wonderful show. You still want feedback. Maybe there were X amount of problems in that, there was a misspelling or something didn't go technically correct, or, someone flubbed something on the air that they made a mistake. People make mistakes. So I think feedback is like one of the biggest things that I always try to give, for better or worse. And sometimes we'll watch the clip and we'll watch it together, and it's an opportunity to see what went right and what didn't,
Mhm.
potentially, and just break it down. Let's talk. Like, there's no crime in talking about if something went wrong. You should be able to talk about that just as much as when things go right. So, um, feedback is like one of the biggest tenets of my
Yeah,
leadership, if you will.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's very time consuming, but I actually watch and listen every single
Yeah,
interview that my client does. Even if they do a 60-minute radio interview, I'm listening to it. Like, and
really.
yes, I provide feedback every single time because I just
Yeah.
think it makes people better. And I think a lot of times, I don't know if your news team
And it's
is
how
like,
you do it, by the way, if I
yeah,
should say. It's how
yeah,
you give the feedback too. It's just as
like the
important.
good, but also, hey, this could make it better if you maybe didn't
Yeah,
tell the story exactly
yeah,
this way, or
yeah.
but
Like when there's sorry to interrupt you. Like when there's scripts, for example, one of my managers, like one of my producers, they may tweak a script on whatever the story is, and you have different versions of the script. So she will print out an old version and then print out the new version. Then so you can go over it. So you have a memory. You have a proof of what worked and what didn't work and how it was tweaked. So that way you
Mhm.
could, instead of just saying, "Oh, I moved this paragraph up or this word here or whatever," now you have the hard copies in front of you and you can actually see side by
Mhm.
side.
Yeah, and I like that you have them, actually, like, watch the interviews or the segments too.
Yeah.
'Cause I know a lot of people don't like to watch themselves. I don't know if
Well,
anchors
sometimes they just want it. Sometimes they don't want to see it,
are
but
anchors like
there
that? Do they not like to watch themselves a lot of times?
it's a good question. I might plead the fifth on that, but
Okay.
no, I listen. They're just as human as everyone thinks they may or may not be. I don't think they shy away from everything. And if an anchor makes a mistake or flubs something, you have to move on because
Yeah.
it's gone. Let's keep going this way.
Well, as we wrap up a little bit, I do want to just ask you about journalism in general. It's going through a very turbulent time, especially right
Hmm.
now. It's
Yeah.
it's risky. It's always been risky, but it's kind of scary right now. Even watching what's happening to student journalists on college campuses. What
Hmm.
would you say to those aspiring to go into journalism, but they're unsure whether it's worth it? How would you encourage them to come into the profession when it doesn't really look that appealing?
Well, it all depends on where you're coming from. I would say to any aspiring journalists, we need you more now than ever before. I would not sway from your passion. If storytelling is your passion and you want to be in it, I wouldn't. I would not. I would not sway or pivot out of it. I think it's such an important tool, a storytelling tool, now, and regardless of your political affiliations or what have you. I mean, journalists are such an essential part of our community. So I, I, I wouldn't, I wouldn't move out of that. I wouldn't fear that. I wouldn't, um, just follow your passion. If it's something that you really want to do, you should stick with it.
It's the profession of truth telling, as you mentioned before,
Yeah.
honesty being one of your top tenets.
Yeah.
And we
Totally.
need truth tellers,
Yeah.
always in our society because they
Yeah.
help keep things on this leaders on the straight and narrow and companies on the straight and narrow. If we didn't have journalists, I always kind of laugh when people mention like, oh, like the newspaper business is going away or TV is going away.
Yeah.
I always say, the media is not going away, because if the media goes away, we are in a lot of trouble. Now, how they tell the stories and what platforms they tell it on, those
Right.
may change. The technology may change,
Totally.
but we need journalists, as you said, more than
Absolutely.
ever now.
And I would say, if you're not sure how to break in or how to get into it, you got to put the time in. And there are always a way to get in. Putting in the extra hours, go in with and sit and observe. This is how I used to do it. I used to sit in an edit room with an executive producer for hours to understand what they were doing and how they put a package together. That's basically when a reporter is out in the field and they assemble all the video and the pictures and stuff like that. I sat there and I did on my own time, and I would stick with it and be willing to put in those hours, because it will pay off. And it comes back to relationships. You put in the time, you build the relationships. You may not get that job a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line, but the relationships have been formed, and hopefully your next break would happen.
Well, I like that, and I like ending on relationships. And I want to, I
We
want
have
to.
such a good one, you and
I
me.
know. I want to thank you for staying in touch with me all
Of
these
course.
years. But what's the best way if people wanted to connect with you? Maybe they're an aspiring journalist, or maybe they're a PR person with the next New York pitch for you. What's the best way for
Yeah.
them to connect with you?
You should definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And I mean, that's probably the best way to start. Not going to give my personal cell phone number on your.
Yet.
I'm just
You only get
teasing.
that. You only get that from Ted when he's calling you because he
That's
wants
right.
something.
That's right.
Then
When the
you have it,
40
like I do, and now it's on lockdown.
when the 404 is calling, you pick up the phone, right?
44212. There's certain ones you just
That's
always
right.
pick up.
Yeah. No. Follow me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Instagram and DM me that way, and we'll connect on LinkedIn, and then I'll be able to get in touch with you via email and phone. Certainly. Happy to help any aspiring journalist or hear the pitch when it's relevant and on topic.
Or if you want to see Ted's tennis game, or how he's
Yeah,
such a great runner, you have to follow him on Instagram
that's right.
at Ted A Winner. Is A your middle initial?
It is,
Are you
Amy.
kidding me? Did your parents plan this way, Ted A Winner? Like, did they
I
know that
know.
that was going to happen?
All you need is like the word "is" in there somewhere, and then you're fine, right?
You don't even need it. Ted A Winner.
It is.
That,
It
that is
is my middle initial. I
that is the
hand to God.
title of your book whenever it comes out. I think that should just be it.
And that will be some book to write, let me
Your
tell you.
memoir. You're going to need a publicist. Give me a call.
If I only knew somebody.
All right. Well, Ted, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have inspired so many people throughout your career journey, and that you're just going to continue to do so. I want to encourage everyone to share this episode so we can get more people exposed to what it's like to work in a newsroom. And also, connect with Ted. Connect with him on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Ted, for being on the show.
It was great to talk with you. Thank you so much, Aim. And going down memory lane a little bit with you too. That was fun.
And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a rating or review. Your feedback helps us plan future episodes. I hope you were inspired today to get out there, be brave, pitch. Just don't pitch until you know what's happening on the news. So turn the news on first. That is the number one pet peeve. Know what's going on. And then you can pitch and make success happen. As a bonus, please join us at anicvox.com, where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. Link's going to be in our show notes, along with all of my social handles and Ted's LinkedIn. So we'll get you there. And let's stay connected and keep MSH, or make, what did you say, salad?
We make chicken salad out of
salad. All right, that's a new one on me. But all right, thank you, Ted.
My pleasure. Thank you, Amy.